For decades, Sonic fans have been building their own games, remakes, reboots, and full original adventures, and in some cases, they've done it better than Sega. Today, we're breaking down the biggest Sonic fan games ever made. Sonic Robo Blast 2. If you're talking about major Sonic fan games, the story really begins with Sonic Robo Blast 2, originally released in early prototype form in the late 90s and still actively updated today. Sonic Robo Blast 2 became one of the most enduring fan projects ever made, built on a heavily modified Doom Legacy engine. The developers tried to answer a question Sega never really did in the 90s. What would a true classic Sonic experience feel like in full 3D? Sonic Robo Blast 2 plays like a hypothetical Saturn-era Sonic game. Rather than boosting or adventure-style brawling, Sonic Robo Blast 2 leans into precision platforming, physics momentum, and deliberately structured levels. The goal is the classic formula: enter a zone, explore alternative routes, gather rings, fight a boss at the end, and slowly work toward a final showdown with Robotnik. Over time, the team added support for Tails, Knuckles, multiplayer, mods, custom characters, full campaign content, and collectibles, turning Sonic Robo Blast 2 into a community ecosystem rather than just one and done fan project. The number one strength fans point to is physics fidelity. Momentum, slopes, roll mechanics, and character quirks behave in a way that retro Sonic players instantly understand. It captures the feeling of Sonic 2 and Sonic 3's level design, weaving between acceleration, clever vertical paths, and kinetic movement systems, but translated into 3D space. Despite its rough edges, Sonic Robo Blast 2 stands out as one of the most important Sonic fan games ever made. It proved that Sonic fans could meaningfully translate classic Sonic into fully playable 3D space, and its modding ecosystem still brings new players decades later. Sonic Before the Sequel. Next up is Sonic Before the Sequel, one of the most influential 2D Sonic fan games ever released. Created by Lake Feppard in 2011, this project didn't just gain popularity, it helped define an entire era of high-quality Sonic fan games. Unlike many unofficial Sonic projects that remix existing zones or retell familiar stories, Before the Sequel aims to fill in the timeline gap between Sonic 1 and Sonic 2. And amazingly, it feels like a legitimate lost 16-bit Sonic title. The story takes place immediately after Sonic 1's ending. Sonic destroys the Death Egg robot and frees South Island. But before he can reach West Side Island, where Sonic 2 begins, Dr. Eggman starts building the Death Egg. Sonic Before the Sequel explores everything that happened during that period. Sonic is traveling, discovering new zones, and trying to stop Eggman's early attempts at launching the Death Egg prototype. The structure is classic Sonic, multiple zones, 2 acts each, bosses, and original cutscenes that connect it all. Its animations, transitions, and level theming go far beyond what most people expected from a fan-made project at the time. The first thing fans praise is the presentation. Sonic Before the Sequel looks and feels like a polished Genesis game, but with enhancements that would have pushed the actual hardware. Smooth animations, bright palettes, clean titles, and extremely creative level themes make the experience feel fresh and not derivative. Despite minor flaws, Sonic Before the Sequel remains one of the most significant Sonic fan games ever created. It pushed the quality bar forward, inspired dozens of future projects, and proved that fan creators could make entire Sonic adventures that rival and sometimes surpass Sega's own output during the early 2010s. Sonic After the Sequel. If Before the Sequel felt like a promising breakthrough for Sonic fan games, Sonic After the Sequel represented the moment where the Lake Feppard trilogy truly exploded in popularity. The basic story follows Sonic and Tails as they pursue Dr. Robotnik after the events of Sonic 2, with the Death Egg in ruins and Robotnik scrambling to regroup. Over the course of the adventure, players encounter brand new zones with motifs far beyond the typical Sega formula, including neon cities, toy factory dreamscapes, water parks, mechanical castles, and many other unique environments. Cutscenes once again punctuate the narrative, acting as a playful bridge between scenes rather than heavy storytelling. The spirit is adventurous, colorful, and cinematic, yet still grounded in classic Sonic platforming rules. After the Sequel is frequently described as the high point of the trilogy. The level themes and set pieces are some of the most imaginative in any Sonic fan game. Environments shift tone constantly, experimenting with visual identity and gimmicks Sega never explored. Levels are also dense with alternate path, speed sections, secrets, and moments designed to reward mastery. After the sequel solidified the trilogy as one of the most celebrated fan initiatives in Sonic history. It demonstrated what fan creators could accomplish with custom art, music, level design, and storytelling. Sonic Utopia. First showcased publicly in 2016, Utopia wasn't a full-length game. It was a prototype, but that prototype had a massive cultural impact in both the fan game community and the broader Sonic conversation. Utopia asked a question that fans had debated for years, but few had truly visualized. What would an open, momentum-driven, exploration-based 3D Sonic look like if it followed the physics and design philosophy of the Genesis era? Instead of linear boosting or adventure-style levels, Utopia dropped Sonic into a sprawling sandbox based loosely on Green Hill Zone. The terrain is massive, filled with hills, loops, cliffs, bridges, and momentum ramps designed to test Sonic's movement rather than funnel him towards a strict end goal. Players are free to roam, experiment, climb, dive, loop, and chain movement together. The biggest positive surrounding Utopia is movement. Sonic accelerates, turns, maintains inertia, and loses speed in a way that feels grounded in Genesis logic, but translated into 3D space. Fans praise the way slope dynamics allow Sonic to build speed downhill, launch upward, or chain jumps organically. The camera, while experimental, offers visibility without abandoning control. Sonic Chrono Adventure. While Sonic before and after the sequel focused on narrative bridges and Genesis-style platforming, Lake Fepard's next major entry is Sonic Chrono Adventure, and that game took a much bolder swing. The story follows Sonic as he becomes entangled in a mystery spanning across two timelines. Players travel between the past and future, with the world evolving based on temporal shifts. A central hub area ties everything together, branching into multiple regions that unlock as Sonic gains new abilities. Unlike typical Sonic games that push forward constantly, Chrono Adventure encourages doubling back, discovering secrets, and interacting with NPCs. There are light RPG mechanics such as upgrades and health extensions, and boss encounters that require pattern recognition and patience rather than pure speed. The strongest praise falls into three categories: ambition, structure, and experimentation. First, the ambition of the project stands out. Chrono Adventure delivers a multi-hour experience with a proper campaign, cutscenes, a central mystery, and actual plot stakes. For many fans, it felt closer to a fan-driven indie title than a tribute project. Sonic Chrono Adventure is remembered as the experimental capstone of Lake Fepard's trilogy. It proves Sonic fan games could transcend traditional Sonic formulas and embrace entirely different genres while still respecting core mechanics. Even today, it's cited as a rare example of a fan project with a strong narrative backbone and structural risk-taking. Chrono Adventure didn't just ask what Sonic should be, it asked what Sonic could be. Sonic Time Twisted. Next up is Sonic Time Twisted, a fan game that tries to imagine what a true follow-up to Sonic CD might have looked like. It mixes the time travel mechanics of CD with the gameplay structure of the classic Genesis titles. After Metal Sonic kidnaps Sonic's friends and steals the Time Stones, Sonic has to travel between past and future versions of each zone to stop Eggman's plan and restore the timeline. The biggest praise goes for how polished the game feels. Time Twisted has full original levels, custom sprites, animated cutscenes, and an incredible soundtrack that feels authentically CD style, while still being fresh. A lot of players also like how the game brings back time travel in a way that feels more intuitive and less frustrating than it was in the original Sonic CD. The boss fights are also a highlight, especially Metal Sonic, who gets multiple set pieces and battles that feel earned. It's one of the fan games that legitimately feels like it could have been a real Sega release in the Genesis/Sega CD era. Another strength is replayability. Different pathways, time routes, and collectibles give players a reason to revisit stages, and getting the true ending makes the whole experience feel more rewarding. If there's criticism, it's mostly about pacing and level layout. Some players feel the stages are a little too long, with sections that can slow down the momentum or feel confusing on a first run. Others say that the time travel mechanic, while better than in CD, still isn't always clear or guided enough. There's also a debate about difficulty. Some think the game is perfect, others say bosses and platforming spikes can be rough for casual fans of classic Sonic. Sonic 2 HD. Now we have Sonic 2 HD, a long-running fan project that attempts to remaster the entire Sega Genesis classic Sonic the Hedgehog 2 with high-definition visuals, redrawn art, and updated animation. Instead of reinventing the game, the goal is preservation. Take a beloved Sonic title and bring it forward as if Sega officially remastered it. The biggest praise goes straight to the visuals. The revival build is legitimately gorgeous. Characters are redrawn in a detailed yet clean style. Animations are smoother, and levels like Chemical Plant and Emerald Hill look incredibly sharp without losing their original identity. Fans also love that it sticks so closely to the feel and physics of the Genesis original. Unlike some remakes that change the formula, Sonic 2 HD aims to be Sonic 2 but prettier, and people appreciate that restraint. The quality of life changes also stand out. Widescreen resolution, crisp sound, and polished effects make the game feel modern while still nostalgic. It doesn't feel like a reinterpretation, it feels like the exact same game you remember, just updated for modern displays and hardware. And since Sonic 2 is one of the most iconic Sonic titles ever made, the idea of playing it in a polished HD form has been a dream for a lot of fans, including myself. The major complaints aren't really about gameplay, they're about development. The project's history has been extremely slow and sometimes rocky, with long gaps, team shakeups, and unfinished builds that left fans waiting for years. Some players feel the project has too much perfectionism, focusing on polish so much that the progress stalls. Others worry that Sega could shut it down at any time, adding anxiety to the game's future. Sonic Overture. Next up is Sonic Overture, a polished fan game that aims to bridge the design sensibilities of the classic Genesis Sonic titles with the modern presentation techniques seen in newer fan games. It isn't a remake or a tribute to one specific game. Instead, it feels like a hypothetical lost 2D Sonic that could have existed between the Genesis era and the more cinematic Adventure era. It quickly earned attention for its clean art, bright palettes, and fluid movement. Sonic Overture gives players a traditional 2D Sonic adventure that focuses on fast-paced momentum gameplay, multi-path level design, and that classic push forward, find flow, and get rewarded structure. It keeps things feeling familiar. Loops, slopes, springs, enemies, ring chains, and item monitors, all in the style of the Genesis original. But Overture also experiments with modern presentation, using smoother sprite animation, richer environments, and level theming that feels more dynamic than the 16-bit limitations would allow. The standout praise goes to the visual direction. The color schemes pop, the level backgrounds are layered in a way that gives real depth, and the character sprites fit that ideal middle ground between retro and modern. The movement feels surprisingly authentic. Fans frequently compare it to Sonic 3 and Knuckles in terms of physics, which is a huge compliment in the scene, since Sonic 3 has some of the best physics in the classic franchise. Sonic Overture isn't trying to redefine Sonic fan games, it's trying to do classic Sonic extremely well, with modern polish and charm, and for many fans, that's exactly why it works. While shorter and less grand than some of the other fan projects, it delivers a tight, stylish, and a deeply affectionate interpretation of what a new 2D Sonic platformer could look like if Sega still built them with Genesis-style physics today. Sonic 3D in 2D. Sonic 3D in 2D is a unique fan effort that reimagines the Sega Saturn/Genesis title Sonic 3D Blast as a traditional 2D Sonic platformer. Instead of the isometric puzzle-like style of the original, this remake asks, what if Sonic 3D Blast played like Sonic 2 or Sonic 3? The result is a fascinating reinterpretation, not just a graphical remake, but a gameplay transformation that lets fans experience familiar characters, themes, and levels in a completely different format. In the original 3D Blast, Sonic rescues Flickies to progress through the levels. Sonic 3D and 2D carries over that concept, but blends it into classic-style 2D Sonic mechanics. Levels are linear but still encourage exploration. The player collects Flickies, hits checkpoints, and interacts with enemies and level gimmicks in more traditional fashion. The end result feels like a lost alternate universe version of 3D Blast that Sega never made. The biggest praise comes from the novelty of the reinterpretation itself. Many players consider 3D Blast a divisive or misunderstood entry in the franchise, visually distinct but mechanically awkward. Turning it into a smooth 2D platformer gives the game a second life, one where momentum play and precision platforming suddenly makes sense with the flicky collecting structure. And I'm not gonna lie to you guys, I have many childhood memories playing Sonic 3D Blast with my brother. Fans also love the sprite work and animation. The game leans more towards the Genesis aesthetic, but uses cleaner and more modern looking sprites, giving characters more personality and movement. Criticism mainly centers around pacing and structure. Because the flicky mechanic remains, gameplay can slow down when players need to track down stray flickies, especially after they scatter on taking damage. For a momentum-driven platformer, this can break flows in ways that feel slightly at odds with classic Sonic design. Some fans feel that the reinterpretation isn't fully committed to either style. It doesn't go full speed high momentum like Sonic 2, but it doesn't recreate the puzzle-heavy exploration of the original 3D Blast. This hybrid approach has its fans, but it also leaves others wanting something more definitive. Sonic Project 06. Few Sonic fan projects have generated as much hype, debate, and fascination as Sonic P06, or short for Project 06. It's a fan remake of the Sonic the Hedgehog 2006 game, one of the most infamous games in the franchise due to its broken mechanics, glitches, pacing issues, and chaotic development. Instead of parodying or reimagining the game, Project 06 attempts something far more ambitious: rebuild Sonic 06 from the ground up into the game that it was originally meant to be. Sonic Project 06 takes the core ideas, levels, story beats, and characters from Sonic 06 and then reconstructs them using modern tools, cleaner physics, better controls, and dramatically improved visual clarity. The project is being released in waves, character by character, with Sonic, Shadow, and Silver receiving full or nearly full set of stages. The goal isn't just to fix Sonic 06, it's to prove that the game's ideas were never fundamentally bad, only poorly executed. The single biggest praise goes to the controls and physics. Characters finally feel responsive, smooth, and consistent. Sonic can maintain momentum without slipping into chaos. Shadow's combat feels faster and more lethal. And Silver, arguably the most divisive character in Sonic 06 or even the Sonic franchise, becomes genuinely fun to control due to a complete overhaul in telekinetic mechanics. Graphics are another standout. Lighting, materials, and animations are all updated, making familiar levels like Crisis City or Wave Ocean look modern and striking. The game even uses enhanced animations and particle effects to make combat and platforming feel more cinematic, without overwhelming the player. Criticism mainly revolves around two areas: content and expectation. The project releases in parts, meaning it isn't fully playable as one continuous adventure yet. Fans who want the entire story, cutscenes, or bosses all in one package will be likely waiting for a long time, and that waiting period can feel frustrating to many fans. Project Hero. While many Sonic fan games try to recreate classic 2D Sonic or fix a controversial 3D entry, Project Hero takes a completely different route entirely. It isn't a remake and isn't based on a specific Sonic game. Instead, Project Hero is a fan-driven attempt to imagine a completely modern Sonic gameplay engine optimized for momentum-based 3D platforming. Rather than releasing a full traditional game, the project mainly serves as a proof of concept. What would Sonic look like in 3D if speed, physics, and player control were prioritized above all else? Project Hero presents itself as a character and physics test, showcasing Sonic and eventually other characters in open maps designed around slopes, loops, ramps, rails, and speed zones. The goal isn't linearity, it's freedom. The player can change momentum, trick systems, and directional movement with a level of control that feels surprisingly natural compared to many official Sonic 3D titles. It's a sandbox where Sonic fans can finally experiment with speed without getting forced down a strict boost path or bottomless pit corridor. The strongest praise centers on movement. Fans often argue that Sonic's biggest struggle in 3D is the disconnect between speed and control. Boost-heavy games like Sonic Forces feel fast but restrictive, while older titles like Sonic Adventure allow more freedom but suffer from jank. Project Hero finds a middle ground. Sonic accelerates smoothly, gains momentum organically, and turns without feeling slippery or forced. Jumps, wall runs, and air tricks add expression and player skill to traversal. Since Project Hero is more engine than game, the biggest complaint is the lack of content. There is no large campaign, no complete levels, no story, boss fights, or progression. For fans who want a full experience, the demos can feel more like tech showcases than something they can invest hours into. Sonic and the Fallen Star. Sonic and the Fallen Star is one of the more recent breakout hits in the Sonic fan game community, a full-length, polished, classic-style adventure with its own original soundtrack, visual identity, and level design philosophy. Released in 2022 by Stardrop with a soundtrack collaboration from Funk Fiction, the game surprised many fans by feeling less like a fan project and more like a completely new 2D Sonic title Sega could have officially published. It blends Genesis-era physics with a dreamlike art direction that sets it apart aesthetically from any other Sonic fan release. The game follows Sonic and Tails as they chase down the mysterious Fallen Star, an object that crashes onto the planet and begins causing strange environmental distortion. The storytelling is mostly visual, no long cutscenes or dialogue, maintaining that classic Sonic pacing but with small touches of world building and personality sprinkled throughout. It's a classic Sonic adventure at its core, but wrapped in a distinct visual and musical package. The first thing players rave about is the art direction. Instead of going for a pixel-accurate Genesis fidelity or HD realism, Fallen Star opts for a surreal, cotton candy-colored palette, full of purples, blues, and soft gradients. Levels look like living album covers, and combined with the wide sprites and fluid animation, the game feels dreamy in a way that's rarely seen in Sonic fan works. Gameplay-wise, the physics are remarkably solid. Momentum, slopes, rollouts, and bounce interactions all behave the way seasoned Sonic fans expect. The level design rewards intelligent routing, letting players experiment with faster paths on repeat playthroughs, just as the classic Genesis titles intended. While the game is praised heavily, criticisms do exist. One recurring complaint is difficulty spikes. Certain zones are noticeably tougher or less intuitive than others, leading to flow breaks that can confuse first-time players. Some segments demand high-speed routing knowledge that isn't immediately readable without replaying. Another point of criticism is the length of some acts. While fans appreciate the content, a few levels run longer than typical Genesis stage pacing, which can make repeated attempts drag, especially for players who chase perfect routes or speedrunning cleanups. Sonic Triple Trouble 16-bit. One of the most ambitious Sonic fan reinterpretations in recent years is Sonic Triple Trouble 16-bit. Originally released in 2022 by Noah Copeland, the game reimagines the Game Gear title Sonic Triple Trouble as if it were a fully Genesis/Sega Mega Drive Sonic game. Instead of simply porting or remastering the original handheld experience, it rebuilds every level, mechanic, boss, and story beat from scratch, but with the physics, presentation, animations, and design sensibilities of Sonic 3 and Knuckles. The result isn't just an upgrade, it feels like a lost 1995 Sonic title pulled from another timeline. The core story remains fully faithful to the original Game Gear narrative. Sonic and Tails are up against Robotnik, but they're not the only ones pursuing the new set of Chaos Emeralds. Knuckles returns as a rival, and Fang the Sniper, a character that is often sidelined in official releases, takes on a surprisingly large role as a persistent antagonist. The tone stays light and energetic, with set pieces and transitions that give the adventure that signature Genesis-era confidence. Gameplay is pure 16-bit Sonic, loop-heavy routes, multi-path exploration, ring management, special stages, and speed sections that reward mastery. Copeland even introduces mechanics implied in the original Game Gear version, but never fully realized, making this feel like the completed version Sega never actually released. The most celebrated aspect is how authentic it feels. Fans repeatedly compare it to Sonic 3 and Knuckles, not just visually, but mechanically. The physics, acceleration curves, air control, slopes, and rolling behavior all behave exactly how hardcore Sonic fans expect, something very few fan games get perfectly right. The biggest criticisms revolve around difficulty and pacing. Certain late game stages and boss fights spike hard, demanding fast learning and punishing mistakes. While the difficulty curve excites experienced players, casual fans sometimes feel overwhelmed. I know this video only covered the surface of Sonic fan games, so guys, if you want me to make another video like this, please let me know in the comment section down below, and be sure to give this video a like and make sure to subscribe so that we're able to go ahead and get a second part of this. If there's any fan game you feel like I missed out, let me know in the comment section down below.